Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
And welcome to the Back Catalog Listening Party. My name is Mother Banjo, one of your hosts.
My name is Anthony Ihrig, the other host.
And today we have joining us from his home in Smoke Rise, Georgia, John McCutcheon.
Hey, folks.
Well, Cindy is super excited to hear this interview. She said, longtime follower of John's,
Excellent.
followed him to Richmond, Virginia last spring for my birthday. Oh, right,
Nice.
Cindy. So
Welcome,
we're so happy
Cindy.
you're here. And you don't have to travel for this show. That's what makes it great, is you can tune in from anywhere. Connie joining us, though, from Richfield.
Hey, Connie.
Alan, happy Friday, everybody. Shiner Bach goes great in my back catalog listening party pint glass.
Excellent.
That's right. Alan, one of our Patreon supporters. And Tony, do you have anything in your back catalog listening party pint glass?
Not today. It finally snowed after a fall. It was like 6 months of fall here, and we got snow. And I just wanted to have a nice warm glass of, cold glass of warm red wine.
Nice. And Christy is joining us with Dad Kermit drinking kombucha. New experiment for him. Great.
Hey, Christy.
And Chris joining us with the Bavarian style Hefeweizen in his back catalog listening party pint glass.
All right.
That's what we like to see. And Lynn joining us from South Carolina. Having sangria. Nice.
Awesome.
Folks are ready for the party.
I guess so. It's that time of year. How about you, Ellen? Are you enjoying anything?
I am. We got these amazingly fresh cucumbers that just taste like melon, that are just really bright. And so it inspired a kind of cucumber infused gin and tonic. So that's what I have going on here. But it has vegetables. Therefore, it's health food. So
For sure. How about you, John? Anything for happy hour today?
I will not reveal what's in here.
There we go. Mystery.
It sounds, yeah. It's always important to stay hydrated, whether it's alcoholic or not.
Right, exactly. Or water. We all need that. Diane, hello from southwestern Michigan, where I'm working on my father's house and making corn and shrimp chowder. Ooh, that sounds good. I wish she could send some of that to us.
Wow, the happy hour is hopping today.
It's really hopping, and folks are cooking, enjoying beverages, just kicking back. Wherever you are tuned in from, let us know where you are, and if you're enjoying a snack or drink on this Friday afternoon. If you're new to the show, this is where we invite different guest artists to revisit old records and talk about them, and we want to hear from you and ask questions as the show goes along, because that's half the fun.
That's the party part of the back catalog listening party, is you guys. It's really a conversation, and we're just so pleased to have you here with us today, John.
Yes.
Well, it's a treat to be here, and especially to listen to this album. One of the things that happens when you make an album, and I'm going in Sunday to begin a new one, because the world, of course, is just waiting with bated breath for a 45th John McCutcheon album.
Yes.
Is that you listen to it so much while you're making it that you never listen to it again. So this is like a time capsule for me. This is an album I made for Red House, a Minnesota label that was run by my old friend Bob Feldman, and it was right after I'd left over 20-year tenure with Rounder Records. They'd been my label for many, many years. And so it also happens to be when I really settled on the band that I'm still using today. And they really gave wings to my humble little songs. And it's really fun to listen to these things again.
Wonderful. Well, we are so excited. And the album that John is talking about is The Greatest Story Never Told. It came out in 2002. And we're going to dig into the record. But before we do, John, for folks who, I know you have a lot of big fans that are tuned in today, but for folks who are maybe a little less familiar with your music, maybe you could give the 2-minute origin story of, where you grew up and how you fell into making music and where this album sort of fits in, I guess, sort of mid-career.
When I was 11 years old, my mom made me sit down and watch television with her on a Tuesday afternoon. And the thing that she was watching was the March on Washington. And it was my introduction to folk music. I mean, we knew about the civil rights movement. It was on television every night, but here was all this music. And I want to parenthetically add, it's something that people who put big demonstrations together have seemed to have forgotten, that it was half music and half speech. So you had kind of the gravitas of I Have a Dream with Marian Anderson and Mahalia Jackson. And then all of a sudden here was Odetta and Peter, Paul and Mary and Bob Dylan, Joan Baez and Len Chandler. And I'd never heard of folk music in my little northern Wisconsin home. And I immediately got hooked on it and started begging for a guitar, got a guitar. When I went to college at St. John's up in Minnesota, there were a bunch of kids from Arkansas who had brought a bunch of instruments with them. They didn't play any of them. That just made them feel a little less homesick. And I saw a banjo and I said, I've always wanted to play the banjo. Can you let me have it? And that was the beginning of the rest of my life. So
Wow.
this album has a whole bunch of different stories, as we'll see as we listen to the songs. And it brings together both my love of traditional music, because I left St. John's to travel around the Southern Appalachians, supposedly on a 3-month independent study that I'm still on 52 years later. And it's got stuff from my many trips to Australia, and visits to my local barbershop, and stuff I've written during intermissions at places where people have given me information about the nonprofits they're working for. So
Excellent.
this is this is the band that I'm still using today.
Wonderful. Well, we are going to dive into this record because we know we have lots of great songs
We
and
wanna get to
stories to get to. So the first track that you picked to feature from this record is Ghosts of the Good Old Days. Is there anything you want to say about it before we take a listen?
This is a song that my buddy Cy Khan and I wrote together, and it really uses the language of what I heard when I first moved south about the disconnect between the generation that grew up learning and playing traditional music and their kids who, with the advantage of radio and roads, and wanted to play something that was nothing like what their parents played.
Let's give it a listen. John McCutcheon, Ghosts of the Good Old Days, here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
Black fur eyes and long breeches, and the train stop every other day. Coke ovens belch that black smoke, and the kids are running every which way. My mama and my daddy said hard times are coming, and the tipple kept spitting that coal. The circuit riding preacher and the missionary teacher kept you ciphering and singing for your soul. Oh, the rattle of the track ain't never coming back. The tipple is a crumbling in the wind. This town is a bleeding out of every road leading up the river where you never even been. It's the lure of the young, the honey on the tongue, and you told them in 100 different ways. But you watch them as they're fleeing, when they look back all they're seeing are the ghosts of the good old days. Well, I got me a wife, got me a job, and I got me a union card. Hold me a patch by the side of the river, so we're ready when the times got hard. Hung 3 pictures above the old sofa, it was Jesus, FDR, and John L. So we knew how to pray, we knew how to vote, and we knew how to really give them hell. Oh, the rattle of the track ain't never coming back. The triple is a crumbling in the wind. This town is a bleeding out of every road leading up the river where you never even been. It's the lure of the young, the honey on the tongue, and you told them in 100 different ways. But as you watch them as they're fleeing, when they look back all they're seeing are the ghosts of the good old days. But the times roll by and the kids roll with them. Now the dust never settles on the road. And I lie awake at night thinking, ain't it a sight how history is a mighty heavy load. It weren't the scabs or the dozers or the wind in the winter drove the youngest to the city by the score. It was the road, the car, that can't stay where you are, and the thirst that makes you always wish for more. Oh, the rattle of the track ain't never coming back, and the tipple is a crumbling in the wind. This town is a bleeding out of every road leading up the river where you never even been. It's the lure of the young, the honey on the tongue, and you told them in 100 different ways. You watch them as they're fleeing, as they look back all the seeing of the ghosts of the good old days.
All right. John
Nice.
McCutcheon with Ghosts of the Good Old Days from his 2002 release, The Greatest Story Never Told. And wow, there is so much going on musically in that song. And of course, the fiddle is at the forefront, right from the opening patch of that. And is that you playing fiddle, or is that one of your band members?
No, it's an ad hoc band member. That's Tim O'Brien, who's playing the fiddle and the mandolin and singing harmonies. Tim is an old friend of mine, and I can't even think of the last album of mine that he wasn't on. He's a great musician, as you and your listeners know. But yeah, that's a song that really hits home for me.
Yeah, well, I'm curious.
Sounds
Oh,
like
go ahead.
home.
Well, and
Sounds
that's-
like home.
That's the question I had, I guess, too, is this, this band that you said kind of came together and has stuck with you ever since. Can you talk a little bit about who was playing, and then this particular configuration of instruments and personnel, and how that's kind of become your...
Not everybody in my recording band is on this one. It's me and Tim and JT Brown, who was bass player for a long time with Mary Chapin Carpenter, and I record at Bias Studios in DC, and so did Chapin. And so we were frequently there at the same time. I'm on her record, she's on mine. And it just felt like Tim was the right person for this. In the ensuing years, Stuart Duncan has become the fiddle player in my band. And
Nice.
And I remember when I first told John Carroll, who again was in Chapin's band as the keyboard player until very, very recently, he said, well, what's next on the album? I said, I'm going down to Nashville to put fiddle on it. He says, who do you got to play the fiddle? And I said, Stuart Duncan. He said, whoa. I said, yeah, you could do worse than Stuart. And he said, everybody's worse than Stuart.
My fiddle friends would agree with that.
And Pete Kennedy plays guitar.
Oh, yeah.
And John Carroll is the keyboard player. He plays great piano and B3 organ and accordion, and is a wonderful singer. And then the drummer that I use, and he'll be coming up shortly, is this fellow. I lived in Charlottesville, Virginia for many years, and he's the local jazz drummer. And I love working with him because he really plays the songs.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because that you have folks like Tim O'Brien on that, who gave it more of that. You could almost hear this song as like done as a straight like bluegrass style song, and with some of the instrumentation you can kind of hear that. But then there's a pretty mighty bass going on in
Electric,
there, which you wouldn't probably hear on that, which I just love. It really added some movement to the song.
And he just, I give him total permission to step out, and he does.
Was that a little nod to the kind of the different generations that you're talking about? And like, was that intentional?
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I learned, because I went down as a 20-year-old kid, and I went down because I thought, oh, well, I got to get all this. I got to meet these guys before they all die off, because I had bought that, traditional music is dying, and it couldn't be further from the truth. And it's really what I have loved doing is taking it and, bring it into the 21st century.
Yeah.
I'm certainly not the only person doing that, but as we'll see as we wander through this recording, I love lots of different kinds of music, and synthesizing them in to make it something that sounds like me has always been fun.
Nice.
Yeah. Looks like Tango just joined the party from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. And we'd love to hear from all of you. If you just joined the party, tell us where you are tuned in from, if you're enjoying a beverage or snack, as we gather together to revisit John McCutcheon's 2002 release, The Greatest Story Never Told. And I have to ask, I know these songs tell lots of different stories. What is the greatest story that was never told?
Well, the title cut was in a response to a story I wrote for my family one Christmas called The Greatest Story Never Told. And it was the nativity story from Joseph's perspective. I mean, he was always kind of the odd man out and everything. You know, his fiance comes and says, I'm pregnant. And he knew he had nothing to do with it. And then she says, well, it was God. And I'm sure he went, right. So I wanted to write, a guy read this who worked at WKSU, and they wanted to do a radio drama of it. And they said, but we need some music. So I wrote this story called The Greatest Story Never Told. So it's not only about Joseph, it's about all the people who make this world run, who never get the credit. You know, if you went to Australia and said, who built the Sydney Opera House, they would say, oh, architects and prime ministers and financiers, whereas no, the people who build this world rarely get the attention and the credit they deserve. So a lot of these songs are about people on the fringes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're going to dive more into the songs. But if you're liking what you're hearing, then make sure to check out John's music at folkmusic.com. And I have to ask before we jump into the next song, folkmusic.com, I can't think of a better URL for what you do, John, than just folkmusic.com, because you've done so much in so many different areas, but always rooted in the folk music. First of all, props to you for nabbing folkmusic.com when you did.
Nobody had it. You know, it shows you what a big blip folk music is out there. My son, who worked for Apple for a long time, he said, God, Dad, you're going to sell that domain for dozens of dollars someday.
Oh, well, folkmusic.com is where you can find John McCutcheon's music and all 44 albums of his music up there. Penny joining us from Northfield, sipping a cherry limeade sparkling water. Hi, Penny. Thanks for joining the party. And you got here just in time to hear the second song that we're going to feature from John McCutcheon's album. And this is Dancing in the Street. What can you tell us about this song?
This began in a pre-concert period when, you know, the sound checks are all done, the light checks are all done. I'm in Lawrence, Kansas playing. And I just had this vision of a paper bag blowing down a street. And I looked up in the sky because I think really cinematically when I'm writing, and I saw my favorite moon, which is the fingernail moon. And it just went off from there.
Excellent. We're going to give it a listen right now. This is John McCutcheon, Dancing in the Street, here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
Fingernail moon in a Detroit sky, and a bag blows down the street. People pass beneath the street lamps glow, and they pray their eyes don't meet. Somewhere in this lonely night, her shift is almost done. I'm content to wait right here in the hopes that she might come. She's usually out by 10:30 when the summer breeze turns cool. I always ask her dancing. Me, I'm a dancing fool. Gonna put my hand in the small of your back. Don't turn away, girl, you gotta look back. Dance with your eyes as well as your feet. Tonight we're going to dance in the street. job for lousy pay, but it left me free by 8 o'clock to dance my nights away. But I never paid attention to all the changes in this town, how Main Street moved out to the mall and all the five and dimes shut down. Take a stranger in your arms, look her in the eye, glide around the dance floor. God, I never felt so high. Gonna put my hand in the small of your back. Don't turn away, girl, you gotta look back. You dance with your eyes as well as your feet. Tonight we're going to dance in the street. Guess when you get older, it's harder to recall, but the way these kids are dancing now, I don't understand at all. Music isn't alive no more. They shout above the beats, they barely touch each other, and they pray their eyes don't meet. I can still remember how to sweep a woman off her feet, but they pass me in this doorway now and they pray our eyes don't meet. They only see the bottle and these dirty worn out clothes. Now they never see the dancer here. I'm only one of those. And she'll shake her head again tonight, make her way back home. She'll make her tea, read a book, and fall asleep alone. And perhaps then when our lives are dreams and we're beautiful and young, I'll hold her in my arms and she will know I am the one. I am the one. Gonna put my hand in the small of your back. Don't turn away, girl, you gotta look back. Dance with your eyes as well as your feet. Tonight we're going to dance. Gonna put my hand in the small of your back. Don't turn away, girl, you gotta look back. Dance with your eyes as well as your feet. Tonight we're going to dance. Dancing in the street. There's a fingernail moon in a Detroit sky. Bang blows down the street. Calling out around the world, are you ready for a brand new beat? Yeah, girl, we're going dancing.
Oh, yeah. Smooth. John McCutcheon with Dancing in the Street. His song, Dancing in the Street. Not to be confused with another classic, but
Well, I like that
actually,
callback there at
yeah,
the end,
exactly. There's some great
Well,
stuff in
and-
there.
Thanks. I also, what drove this writing of this was I remember seeing a guy, obviously a street guy, at a stoplight dancing by himself, and he was really good. And I thought, okay, let's have an ill-fated love story about him out there on the street. He used to work at Woolworths. Woolworths closed down. Now he's on the street. And there's this girl who comes by at the end of her shift, and every night he asks her to dance, and she always says no. And that whole notion of people not looking at one another, we pray our eyes don't meet. I love to dance. In fact, I'm just about to start ballroom dancing lessons with my 8-year-old granddaughter.
Oh, lovely.
And I love dancing, and my wife claims she's not a good dancer, but she looks at you the whole time that you dance it, and you dance with your eyes as well as your feet. It's a lot of stuff tumbled into this song.
That was
Yeah.
a great line that I really caught my ear.
Yeah.
Dancing with your eyes.
And of course, a lot of people commenting on the sax, which of course is so present in that song. And Chris
Yeah.
says we really need to bring the sax back into the folk music scene, which I think anyone who hears the song would agree with. It just adds a totally different vibe to the song, and the interplay between the sax and that electric guitar at the end
Yeah,
was
yeah.
so great. Was that Pete Kennedy playing guitar on that?
It is, and it's a guy named Bobby Reed, who's also a mainstay of the Charlottesville music scene. He plays with Bruce Hornsby,
Yes.
and he's just he plays soprano beautifully. He plays alto. He plays tenor. He's just a great musician. He's been on lots of my albums.
I was really digging on the background vocals, some really great
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
harmonies back there. Can you talk a little bit about that?
That's JT Brown, the bass player, and John Carroll, the piano player, and we call them the Mubu Childs. And they're able to do that kind of stuff and then do more bluegrass stuff too. So it's they're really gifted.
Versatile.
I'm so lucky that these guys who are in great demand. I mean, every time Stuart Duncan says, "Sure, when do you need me?" It's like, what? You know,
Nice.
you want to play on my stuff? Okay.
Yeah, really, really great stuff. And anyone who is watching the show here on YouTube can see that in your home studio you have many instruments, too many to count, happening back there.
Yeah.
Any estimate on how many instruments at least are in more regular rotation in your arsenal?
When I go out and perform, I take a hammer dulcimer,
Which is
guitar,
big, by the way.
Yeah. Hammer dulcimer, guitar, banjo, fiddle, auto harp, and they always have a piano there for me. So I was raised before Ritalin.
I hear that. Well, what like when you decide to bring these one of these or more of these instruments to a piece, like, is there any kind of thing that is guiding you? Like, or is it just a feel, or are you trying to kind of express yourself in different ways with different instruments or different textures?
Well, I'm in charge of the production, so it's but I just send basic demos out to the fellows that I play with. And as we will on Sunday, we'll get together and we'll sort of talk through things. And I'd like to think that one of the reasons these guys like to play with me, because they're really in demand, is that I don't say, play this. I say, let's make this song be whatever it's going to be. And as you'll hear from the selections we have here, it's all over the place. And I think they like having their fingerprints on it, and I respect their musicianship. And I've been writing on Zoom a lot starting in the pandemic. And one of the guys I'm writing with is David Amram, who is 93 years old, the most performed classical composer in the United States. And he was saying, we were talking about an arrangement of a song that we're working on. And he said, my whole career, I've just always gotten people who are better than me to play with me. And that's always the way I've felt.
Nice.
Well, yeah, the results are amazing. And David was chiming in that he first saw that your URL is folkmusic.com on Wikipedia, and he thought that can't be, but it is. And he said he'll be at your website all weekend, is what he says. And then Joni was wondering if you were an instrumentalist first. You talked about picking up a guitar when you were a kid. Was that first, or was singing, or was it kind of simultaneous?
Oh, I definitely focused on the instruments, and I listen back to some of my really old albums and I think, oh, what a mediocre singer you are. And eventually I realized that I could learn how to sing in much the same way that I was learning instruments. I listened to those people whose singing I admired in much the same way. When I was learning to play the fiddle, I would find a fiddle player or multiple fiddle players whose music I really admired, and I'd hang with them. So I started off as an instrumentalist, and it's probably only been in the last 20 years or 25 years that I feel like I'm starting to learn how to sing.
Can I ask who those people were that you were kind of studying and wanting to sing like?
Well, I wasn't actually trying to sing exactly like them, but I mean, Hazel Dickens, oh my God, and Jean Ritchie and Bernice Johnson Regan, and people who just had really, they owned their voices. They completely occupied them. And there was a period of time when I would call square dances and I'd do an hour-long show, and then they'd push back the chairs, and I'd call square dances because, I was hanging out at square dances to observe fiddles and banjos. And I just loved this whole idea of this community getting together and holding one another in their arms, hearkening back to Dancing in the Street. And I was losing my voice. So I was producing an album for Holly Near back in the mid 80s. And she took me to her voice teacher and she said, okay, you do understand that despite the fact that you want to sing like Roscoe Holcomb or Ralph Stanley, that you're actually a baritone. You're not a tenor. And it was a wake-up call. And so I just got comfortable with the lower realms of my voice.
So powerful on this record.
Yeah, for sure. And you say that you only started feeling like a singer in the last, 25 years. And this album we're revisiting today came out in 2002. So that would have been at the earlier end of that 20 plus year period. But I have to say, it sounds pretty fully formed to me. And we are going to dig into more of this record because we're going to try and get through as many songs as we can. And the next song that you picked to feature is Walk on Water. What can you tell us about this song?
I wanted to do this one because this was really a very quickly written song. I was brought in by a group of people in Dallas. And in between Dallas and Fort Worth, there's this lake called White Rock Lake. And it was starting to fill in, and they formed a citizens group to try to save this lake. And this wonderful firebrand of a woman named Marcy Winter brought me all kinds of information, and I wanted to do this. They brought me in to do a fundraising concert, and I wanted to be as present for these people as possible. So I actually, on the plane down there, read all this material, this voluminous stuff. And one of the legends was about this phantasma woman who would come out of the lake and walk on the water. And so during the intermission of the concert that night, I'm sitting back there and I thought, well, wouldn't it be nice if I kind of took all this material that they've given me and composed something for right now, for these people? And this just fell out. So I gave this to them as I said, use it as you will for your fundraising. Walk on Water.
Nice. This is John McCutcheon, Walk on Water, on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
Let's go down to the lake tonight. Got my daddy's car and it's Saturday. If the moon is out and the wind is right, we could sail on Sunset Bay. From Winfrey Point to Lawford Drive, the old ones swear she's still alive. She walks on water. She walks on water. She walks on water. Now it's time to take her home. Let's go down to the lake tonight. Got the top down and some rock and roll. If the stars are out and the catfish bite, sure enough we'll save your soul. From a first step to a first kiss, all my life it's been like this. Where she walks on water, walks on water. She walks on water, walks on water. She walks on water. Now it's time to take her home. I swam at her boathouse, fished her piers. we shared a bounty. More than once she saved our lives. Now where the swimmers swim and the runners run, and the children have played since the time begun, where many husbands met their wives. It's time for us to see that she survives. Let's go down to the lake tonight. There's a sunset burning the evening sky. She's out there now and she's dressed in white. You can hear her lonesome cry. She's asked for nothing in return. Now it's time to see how much we've learned. She walks on water. Walks on water. She walks on water. Walks on water. She walks on water. Now it's time to take her home. She walks on water. Walks on water. She walks on water. Walks on water. She walks on water. Now it's time to take her home. Let's go down to the lake tonight. We can walk on water, walk on the water. Let's go down to the lake tonight. We can walk on water too. Let's go down to the lake tonight. We can walk on water, walk on the water. Let's go down to the lake tonight. We can walk on water too. Let's go down to the lake tonight. We can walk on water, walk on the water. Let's go down to the lake tonight. We can walk on water too. Let's go down to the lake tonight. We can walk on water, walk on the water. Let's go down to the lake tonight. We can walk on water too. Let's go down to the lake tonight. We can walk on water, walk on the water.
I love a long fade out. In fact, I want to know, how long did you play that? Like how long was the original track?
Oh, we just stopped.
Oh, just stop.
I always like to imagine it went on for like 30
Another
minutes.
20 minutes,
and
yeah.
It was just a super.
We do that a lot, where we just keep playing, and eventually, and I don't do many fade outs anymore, but I'd forgotten about that one. And the thing that was fun in listening to this is the collected stories that I got from people. This is really where people would go and they'd run and they'd go and make out and they'd go swimming and sailing, and so many people said, "Oh, I met my wife there. It's where I had my first kiss." And it's where we took our babies when they were young. And so it was nice to, it was really the people who gave me the information that helped write this song.
That's awesome. Well, Alan said you nailed it. Yeah, someone from the Dallas area.
Yeah. And Chris wanted to know, John, has your approach and or style of music changed since this album? I mean, this was 22 years ago. So I know you've put out lots of different kinds of records since then, but how does it feel looking back on it now?
I'm a little less drum oriented. In fact, this new album going in, we're actually only going to use the full kit only twice on 15 songs, and really leaning more into the acoustic roots of stuff. But this was just so fun to do. And if something comes up, there's one big anthem we're going to be doing, and we're bringing in a gospel choir. And anything goes. And the people that I work with are just so talented and versatile that we can do lots of stuff.
Yeah, and that's pretty apparent on this record. The Greatest Story Never Told is the album we're revisiting today on the Back Catalog Listening Party, with John McCutcheon joining us from his home in Georgia. And again, it came out in 2002. And as you mentioned earlier, every song is a, kind of totally different style. We had kind of some bluegrass, some soul, some folk rock, all different kinds of stuff, but all sounding pretty fantastic. And if it
wait for this next one.
I was going to say, before we jump into the next one, we should mention that if you like what you're hearing, and folks really are, we're all appreciating the songwriting and the arrangements and the musicianship. But one thing that if you're just listening on YouTube, you might not be aware of the amazingly high production value that was put into this record.
Yeah, sounds so good. And so if you do like what you hear, we highly recommend you get the high resolution files, whether it's digital or physical CDs. There's a lot of ones and zeros that are missing when it goes through the internet tubes. And man, just the quality is so high that if you're a music nerd like us, you should hop on over to folkmusic.com. Pick up the physical CD. That goes a long way to supporting artists these days. What's a CD worth 100,000 streams or something like that? And John, are you sending those out from your house, the CDs, or is that coming from another place?
I have an office, and they do all that. I'm too busy writing and recording and
tuning all those instruments.
But you do have physical copies left of this one?
Yes, but I also. My own kids, I send them CDs, and they don't have anything to play it on. They don't have a computer, they don't have a car with it. So actually, on the website, you can download wave files, because I hate MP3s.
Yeah.
And I don't know why any musician would want to spend the kind of money it costs to make to get great musicians and great production value, and then have it squashed down to an MP3. So yeah, you can download full CD quality files and burn your own CDs, or you can listen to them and you can have both of them and do your own sound test.
Yep.
That's right. Along with your 43 other releases as well on your website, folkmusic.com. You can also check out his tour dates. John McCutcheon is a pretty busy guy. In fact, we've been trying to find a date that works for him for quite some time. So you want to catch him live when you can, whether it's with his band or Tom Paxton or any of the great folks he's been playing with. You can check that out at folkmusic.com. And before we get into this next song, I do want to also thank our Patreon folks. These are the folks that have kept this show going, and also buying all the albums of our guest artists for 202 episodes. Is that right?
Yeah.
So we want to thank these folks. These are the folks that support the show, keep it running all year long. Penny, Anna, Linda, Bevan, Connie, Vaughn, Alan, Chris, Alex, Becky, Peggy, Joe, Jim, Beverly, John, Fred, Tim, Sarah, David, Jocelyn, Matt, Steve, Mark, Homestead, Pick and Parlor, Severin, Lynn, Mary, Many Tracks, Nikki, Jonies, David, CJ, Wiley, Stephanie, Christy, and maybe you. If you would like to join our Patreon community, you can do that and get invites to special after parties with guests and get first look at all of our guest artists. And you can get that back catalog listening party pint glass that a few folks have been mentioning in the comments.
Yeah, everything tastes better out of it. It's amazing.
It is.
And the music sounds better when you're using it. Yeah, we want a big shout out to all of you, because it really, in this day and age of streaming music, it's people supported. And along those lines, I want to make sure we point out that John also has a Patreon. Mm-hmm. And John, could you tell folks a little bit about your Patreon and what it has to offer?
Well, like every musician that I know, at the beginning of the pandemic, we were all trying to figure out how we're going to keep things going. And what was clear to me is that CDs no longer pay for themselves. So the people who support my Patreon page, and there's different levels like every Patreon, but 100% of the donations go toward making recordings.
Nice.
That's all where it goes. And the people who are my Patreons, they get advanced free CDs and or downloads months before it's available to anybody else. So that's what I'm doing with it.
That's why we're here. That's why we're all doing this. So that sounds like a great thing to do. I just put it in the comments. Click on over, join John on Patreon, help make that 45th record a little easier to make.
And but we right now are going to try and squeeze in two songs, if we can, from this 2002 release of John's The Greatest Story Never Told. And this track is Extend a Hand. And I know there's some great story behind the song. Do you want to give some of that now or after we hear the song?
No, I think it's helpful to have it now. I have toured in Australia for years and years and years, and it's some of my favorite audiences. And my wife says it's God's little joke that he creates your perfect audience and puts it 10,000 miles away. So I've been there a lot, and this song is about an event that happened on the Harbor Bridge, which everyone has seen. It's right behind the Sydney Opera House, and there was a reconciliation movement. It was just called the Sorry Movement, of the first Australians, the Aboriginal people, who were and their allies in the white community were just trying to get the government to say, basically, we fucked up, and we're sorry. And so there was a march beginning on each side of the Harbor Bridge. One was all first Australians and the other was all whites. And my friend Ted Egan led the white enclave, and Kathy Freeman, who won the 200 meters at the Sydney Olympics. She was also the woman who brought the torch into the stadium to light the Olympic torch. And when she came in, she was standing in a ring of fire and water, these two opposing elements, and holding up the torch. And it was a moving thing. And just before the 200 meters finals, which I got up at like 2:00 in the morning to watch, and she won. And so when she made her lap around the track, she carried both the Australian and the Aboriginal flag. And it was just so incredibly moving. And I was asked to come in and help welcome a group of, ironically, of Aboriginal women who were visiting the United States because they knew of my relationship with Australia. And Carrie Ann Cox was with that group. And I sang this song for them, and Carrie Ann just started singing along with me, and we became friends. And eventually, when I recorded it, I invited a group called the Stiff Gins, an Aboriginal trio that I had met in Australia, to come to the United States and record this with me. And Carrie Ann was there, and she recorded it with me. And it's one of my very favorite cuts on this. It's sonically, it's going to be really different from what you've heard so far.
And for those who are just listening right now, we're showing a few pictures that John sent ahead of the broadcast here. And right now we're looking at, this is the group you were talking about?
The Stiff Gins, yes.
The Stiff Gins. And then here we have a photo
of Carrie Ann.
Carrie Ann. Excellent. All right. Well, that's a great setup. And now let's enjoy the song. This is John McCutcheon, Extend a Hand, here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
In a ring of fire and water, she raised the ancient flame. Freedom was her birthright, freedom was her name. As all the world was watching, without a single word, she spoke for generations, and every voice was heard. 200 years and more have passed since Cook saw Botany Bay. Still the choices that we make create our history every day. The things that we remember, the races that we start, have brought us to the water's edge with a fire in our heart. And as we walk across the harbor bridge, we reach across the years, reach across our differences, we reach across our fears, and we reach into the mystery as we seek to understand the meaning of our history. We must each extend a hand. generation, children taken from their homes, taken from the bush to town, taken from their blood and bone. Still the dream time called out to them, and the song line showed the way, led them safely back to home, and have led us here today. As we walk across the harbor bridge, we reach across the years, we reach across our differences, we reach across our fears, and we reach into the mystery as we seek to understand the meaning of our history. We must each extend a hand. Every day I wonder why I'm sorry is in short supply. Still we try and try and try, try and try and try and try and try. Fire and water, she raised the ancient flame. Freedom was her birthright, freedom was her name. She raced into the future with both banners of our nation, and the fire and the water danced in reconciliation. As we walk across the harbor bridge, we reach across the years, we reach across our differences, we reach across our fears, and we reach into the mystery as we seek to understand the meaning of our history. We must each extend a hand.
Yes,
Wow.
John McCutcheon here on the back catalog listening party with Extend a Hand from his 2002 release, The Greatest Story Never Told. Folks loving it. Joni says, my eyes are filled with tears, heart is full. Yeah, such a moving song, and so great to hear all the different instrumentation and voices happening on that. And Chris wanted to know if there were some Aboriginal instruments woven in there, and it sounded like there was some didgeridoo.
Yeah, it was didgeridoo, and at the end you heard click sticks, which are often just a boomerang. That is this the two first Australian instruments, the didgeridoo and click sticks, and then it was just guitar and what a bass part, huh?
Yeah. I thought this, yeah.
That was JT.
And all those voices too, and especially at the end, I will say again, putting another plug in to get the high res files and listen with headphones, because sort of the back and forth and the stereo of the different voices and the clicking and all of that happening was just really powerful.
It's an immersive experience, and yeah, I'll second that.
And you can pick up that album, this album that we've been talking about all hour long, at folkmusic.com. You can find John McCutcheon's tour dates, find out more information about where he'll be playing, join his Patreon, and all of that good stuff, because it's a lot of good stuff.
Yeah. And that's not a clearinghouse, folks, folkmusic.com. No, that's John McCutcheon.
Because he is Mr. Folk Music.
That is right. That is right.
And well, this has been such a special hour to have you with us, John, spending this hour revisiting these songs and this special album. But I think we can fit in one more tune if you're game for
Yeah.
it. Okay.
I'm totally game. And this is a song that I wrote in my local barbershop when I got there, and there was a big long line, and I was just in a writing mood. And at the very end, you hear my barber say, who's next?
Like this is actual audio of your barber.
I went and I took him into the bathroom and I recorded it on my DAT player and we dropped it in.
I love it. That's what folk music is all about, folks. This is real life.
That's right.
And we're going to hear it right now. John McCutcheon, Barbershop, here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
Open the door and step inside. Peanut, Vitalis, and bar beside. Towels and the steamer, hot lather on the chin. What you looking at, boy, ain't you gonna come in? You got a clean white coat and a leather chair. Floor covered up with an acre of hair. Take your place in line with the boys and the men. Sports Illustrated and a CNN. Where the red and white stripes go round and round. Take off your hat and set yourselves down. Where the time never starts, talk never stops. Down at the neighborhood barbershop. So how is your garden? Where are your kids? Can you believe what the president did? What the hell's going on up in Baltimore? Seems like the O's can't win anymore. The old men and the cops and the little kids, each coming in here like the daddy did. Some a little different, some a little strange. Some things just never seem to change. Where the red and white stripes go round and round. Take off your hat and set yourselves down. Where the time never starts, talk never stops. Down at the neighborhood barbershop. We got your flat tops, ducktail summer buzz. We're still wondering what the 70s was. Here in the 21st century, is there any place left for a man like me? For a man like me? Mall on the county line, there's a new place that's on noise and shine. You get your hair done in the latest style, make it round here for a good long while. Because the only moose we've ever seen is over on a rack in the field and stream. We're not old-fashioned or locked in time, it's just permanence of a different kind. Where the red and white stripes go round and round. Take off your hat and set yourselves down. Where the time never starts, talk never stops. Take up the sides and just a little off the top. Get yourself one of them Tootsie Roll Pops. Down at the neighborhood barbershop.
Here it comes.
That's right.
Okay, who's next?
I love that. John McCutcheon and his barber on the song
yeah.
Barbershop.
Good old Eddie.
Well, that was super fun. Folks loving that. And yeah, another sounded like a clarinet in there. And
That's Bobby Reed. Bobby Reed again. He can play
lot
them all.
I was going to say a lot of reed instruments showing up on today's show. As a former oboe player, that maybe that's what needs to come next on the next John McCutcheon record. Oh, Tony, I think you're muted.
That would explain why nobody reacted to all my funny jokes I just was saying. All right, we're going to bring the sax back, and we're going to bring the clarinet back.
Yes.
And the didgeridoo.
And the didgeridoo. And
That's
the click
right.
sticks.
And the click sticks. All of it is coming back thanks to John McCutcheon. Thank you all so much for joining us today. This has been a really special hour to revisit this record that came out 22 years ago. It's hard to believe. I remember when it came out, Bob Feldman, the founder of Red House Records that put out this album, he used to be my radio neighbor at KFAI. And he was like, Ellen, have you heard this new John McCutcheon record? It's the best thing he's ever done. And of course, Bob said that about a lot of records, but I don't think he was kidding. It was, at least at the time. But of course, you put out, 20 plus something records since. But I also put a vote in that this is one of your great records, John. And we're so grateful that you came to share it with us today.
Yeah, thank you so much, John.
Oh, thanks for the invitation, and thanks to all the good people who took the time to join us in happy hour today.
Yes,
absolutely. Chris says, add this show to the greatest hits. Yeah, we agree. We will, Chris and Joni and everybody else. Yeah, I'll second that from John. Thank you all for being here. I mean, it's a community. That's what this is all about. It doesn't happen in a vacuum. We appreciate all of you so much for supporting independent music and just doing what you do. We're excited to do this every Friday. So if you like this this week, give it a thumbs up on YouTube. Sends more traffic to John, and this episode gets the word out. And if you like this format, definitely subscribe to our YouTube channel, because we do it every Friday. We love to bring this great art back out into the world.
That's right. And you can also always check out this episode along with the show notes, and you can check out all the photos. Maybe if you were just listening to the show, you can check that all out at backcataloglisteningparty.com, along with our other past episodes, including many of the folks that John mentioned, some of whom played on this record, like Tim. Well, I don't know if the Tim O'Brien episode is up, but he's been a guest. We also have Pete Kennedy from the Kennedys, a whole bunch of the other folks mentioned.
Stuart Duncan's definitely been on a couple records. So.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Well, thanks, John.
Yes.
Well, you're welcome.
Really special.
It's been a pleasure to be here. Now I got to go out and buy my grandson his first pocket knife.
Oh,
all right. I hear another song in the works right there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right, everybody. Until next week, have a wonderful weekend and enjoy lots of great music. We'll see you next week here on the Back Catalog Listening Party. Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye.